My name's Dan Dillon from Aquaphobix, and this is the Tom Rowland podcast.
Dan, what's going on today?
Well, I've been out trying to shuffle some boats around and make people happy. What about you?
how do you how are you making people happy with boats these days? You got an interesting business, man. I was checking out what you do basically from a video on Instagram, and it's very intriguing. First of all, I don't know what you're doing exactly with the blowtorch and what you're spraying exactly on the bottom of the boats, but tell me what Aquaphobix is.
It's a pneumatic thermal plastic that we melt on fiberglass, we melt on metal, we melt on concrete. And 7-8 years ago, not long after Irma, or right before Irma, we started this product that was it saw it at a trade show. It was a European company that was introducing it, and then was brought to the States. And so we started using it on swimming pools with just tremendous success. And then we started to see, like everybody, when they see it, they wonder what other applications that you can apply it on. So we spent at least 6 years developing it further to make it work for us perfectly on swimming pools. And in the last year or two, we've been messing around trying it on fiberglass boats and see where that leads us.
Really?
And yeah.
So when you first saw it, what kind of trade show were you at?
So I was at a pool show. I'm a pool contractor.
It was a product that was designed for pools.
Actually, the original product was acid holding tanks, an industrial product where industrial people would coat the insides of their concrete vessels, and they would dip their metals in and out of it to get the grease off of it, to powder coat it or whatever they were going to do. And they were struggling because the acid was eating the concrete.
Mm-hmm.
So they developed this product, and then kind of just slowly, and really it's almost 30 years old. They've been doing this for 30 years. It started in South Africa. Wow. By a family out of Pennsylvania. So the background story, kind of interesting when we talk about it, or you see it for the first time. The background story is a lot deeper than people think. It's just a new product that we're gonna be putting on something. It's actually a tried and true product with all kinds of certifications, and so started messing with on pools. Became extremely popular, extremely successful with it on that side of things. And typical me, Tom, I get a little bored with stuff, so I start trying to do other things with it. And I like to try to solve a problem. And bottom paint, I've had my first boat that ever had any money. I bought a 290 Sea Ray in Charleston, South Carolina, and they said, "You're going to keep it at my dock." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "You got to bottom paint it." I didn't know what they were talking about. I'm like, "Yeah, if I got to bottom paint it, let's bottom paint it." They painted that boat, and I spent about 3 weeks moping because of what my boat looked like. I was like, "This is horrible looking," but you have to have it. So that hit me. That's my personal attachment to it. I was like, well, I'm never buying a boat again that I have to leave in the water. I'll never do that again. So I just, spent $180,000 and somebody's going to put an ugly wig on it, is what it looked like to me. And then I'm paying divers all the time to come over there and scrape it and do all those things to it. So I kind of left it I left Charleston and moved down here, and the thought left my brain. And I had retired in 2012 from healthcare and got down here and realized I was too young to retire, and started being a pool contractor, and ran into this Aquaphobix and thought I'd give it a shot. And, and so far so good. We're testing really well with it. Just really excited about it. So,
the most interesting, there's a lot of interesting things about it, but the most interesting part, the most intriguing part, the thing that will get people's attention if you've never seen it before, because that's exactly what it did for me, is the application. So it's put on for some reason with a blowtorch. And from what I could see, is it starts out as some sort of powder? Is that what's going on? Explain the whole
So,
process and why it has to be applied like it is.
So it's a dry powder. So the process is very similar, just like a fiberglass pool, just to a fiberglass boat. The process is almost identical. Um, you sand the gel coat down with about 60 grit sandpaper, sand it down. We fireproof off, and it make more sense once you see the video. But we tape off with fireproof tape. We have this epoxy that's kind of heat activated. So sand it down, clean it up, put this epoxy on. We roll it on just like you would think somebody was rolling bottom paint on. And then from there, we have a compressor, propane, and a hopper. There's a hopper sitting out there with 40 pounds of powder in it. It looks just like baby powder or talcum powder that we pneumatically shove through that flame. So the product comes out of the flame and basically flocks it, or almost just like spray painting, but you happen to have a torch on the end of it. So we torch that on there. Ends up 3 coats of that. Takes us. One of the attractive things about it for me initially was the restriction that you had sometimes in gel coating, you have sometimes in any sort of painting, is the current humidity outside. And in South Florida, we don't have very many days that aren't humid.
Right.
So that was a cool part for us because timing means a lot to us. So basically, we melt this product on there. Has an incredible bond strength, so it doesn't really come off. We've tested boats all the way up to 60 miles an hour at this point, and it had no delamination, none of those problems. So it's just been it's a problem that I've seen out there, and I think anybody that's ever had a boat, spending time with a boat and had to sand a boat every year, we're solving a problem for people. So I'm that side of things. I'm excited, and particularly for me, besides the look of it, the particular thing for me is the environmental side. Mm-hmm. Every time I visit somewhere, I was in Baltimore last year visiting and in their harbor, and I wasn't even thinking about putting this on bottom paint at that moment up there, but their locals were just complaining that all the boats sitting in the harbor, there's no fish in there. There used to be grass in there, and there used to be wildlife in there. So it's just a desert out there now in this term. So,
and that's from what they think that's from the bottom paint.
100%. It's the water testing, the copper. It used to be copper was king as far as inhibiting growth, and that product it's designed to fall into the water. I mean, it's going somewhere. So they do soil tests there. I mean, there's study after study, Tom. If you want to look through the internet and just look at some of the problems that have happened to our marinas and our bays because of the concentration of boats and the concentration of copper, and that copper and the microplastics end up in our fish and end up in you when you eat the fish. I mean, we are now testing our blood levels. This product in particular has made me stop drinking out of plastic water bottles.
Really?
Yeah. The microplastics are just it's crazy. You go to the doctor now, the doctor can tell whether you use drink out of plastic or you don't. And all those microplastics are causing all kinds of weird problems for people. It doesn't make sense that you would want to drink it.
So, I mean, what I would think when I look at your product is that it's some sort of melted plastic.
It is 100% melted plastic. The difference is it never leaves the boat.
Okay.
So it's not ablative. When we get into those conversations, in my process of really diving deep into this, understanding the difference between the hard paints and the ablative paints in those processes as they work, it shocked me. It shocked me that it's designed to pollute our water.
I mean, that's the way that's the way it's working to keep the stuff from growing on the bottom of the boat, is that it's leaching out metal.
Whatever when something attaches to it, whatever organic growth attaches to it, the way it gets off of the boat is it peels a piece off with it as it falls down. So you have a diver down there scraping your boat. He's scraping the paint right into the water. So it's
so the way that the way that traditional bottom paints work, and I'm sure that you can go back and maybe you're not an expert on bottom paint, you're just maybe an expert on your own product, but
yeah,
how did they, what do we know, like what the process has been? Because I've made this mistake one time.
yeah,
I had a bay boat. We were super busy. We were running every single day. We literally did not have a day or a minute, or I mean, we're running like triple trips every day.
yeah,
Two different captains running the boat. It's running all the time. The boat stays in the water for 3 months in hot time of the year. We
yeah,
literally grew a reef on the bottom of the boat.
yeah,
It got so overgrown, and of course you can't see it. You can just see the side of the boat, right?
yeah,
But I was shocked when I finally took the boat out of the water, and you can't get that stuff off. I mean, and so when you start chipping that stuff off, it's taking pieces of the boat with it. So
yep,
I promised I was never going to do that again. But at the same time, you know, I didn't leave it in the water enough to warrant necessarily bottom paint, because like you, I don't like the way the bottom paint looks. I
exactly.
was unaware of how serious the environmental consequences are of bottom paint. But when old ships, like, or I don't know, what was the first bottom paint? Do we have any idea?
I went back in that. I've been down that rabbit hole. It used to be pine tar.
Pine
I mean,
tar.
pine tar was the first. The first. Then they would burn the time. They would try to heat and melt that pine tar into the bottom of the wood chips.
Would that keep
Um,
stuff from growing on it, or just
no, it was
probably?
just what they had back then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
So
no,
you go from pine tar to what? What goes better? What's better?
you know, the next best thing is, I guess, is to, I don't know the in between of that, but I
Right.
do know what's happened where our progress to today is. So I'm not sure about, what the interim steps were in between that.
Yeah, but I
Um,
mean, a next step is a paint that has something in it that kills
yes.
stuff trying to grow,
Yeah.
right?
So you get it into the ablative, and people, I mean, copper's the number one anti-fouling
Okay.
metal that's out there. So copper has dominated for years.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I still think there are some countries, rogue countries out there, maybe, that you can still drive your boat, not far from where we live, and go get the real copper paint put on your boat.
Mm.
Um, but those days are numbered, and the environmental people are really, really zeroing in on this. I mean, we talk about our reefs and how they're dying, and we talk about all these different things. It's interesting you brought up about your boat and the beard. We call it a beard that kind of grows on that boat. And it's running 24/7. Your performance is dropping just every day. Every day the
Sure.
thing grows thicker. I mean, you're losing performance, and at the end of the day, I don't want to Tom, I don't want to scream about feel like a tree hugger. As we're talking about this, I do care about our water, and I do think there's some limitations of the yeah, is the benefit worth it? There can be a sliding scale at some point. And I think we've reached that point now where you say, okay, if my performance is dropping off, and now I'm using more fuel, now I'm heating the environment more. There's a lot of things that you look at just besides what's going into the water. Now you can talk about how much more engine power it takes and how much more fuel I'm burning into our atmosphere all at the same time. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot to be said there. We think with what's currently out there available, we don't think we kind of know what's out there available. Still not is not great for our environment. We know that. We think our solution solves that problem. We think we help tremendously with the efficiencies. And if you compare Aquaphobix to even today's best bottom paint, they're not winning the efficiency battle either. So we're kind of happy in that little space right
So
there.
when you say that, like you're sure that your product is better for the environment than the traditional bottom paint. Why is that? Like what?
We are the only paint, and I'm not going to use the word paint. We are the only coating that's out there that is marine life certified, marine water certified. So our biggest problem when we did it at SeaWorld was capturing any dust. When we shoot that powder out, there might be some air particles that don't melt, the excess. Like we're shooting at about 97% of what we shoot at that boat ends up on the boat. But even with that, we have a little bit of air quality. We had to monitor our air quality the entire time so it didn't float over to the dolphin exhibit or whatever exhibit that we were working on. So I am sure of these things that we do have the certification. I'm also sure that we have a drinking water safe certification that you can go to our website and check out. But
hold on. Why would you need that certification?
First of all, you need it if we're going to do pools at Disney or we're going to do it at SeaWorld.
So
they won't allow,
like somebody that has a lot of people, or SeaWorld has certain marine life that they're trying to make sure that they're providing a safe place for. They have a certification that you have to meet to even bid for the job, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's what a marine life certification is?
Yep. That's exactly what that is.
What does that say that your product does or does not do?
What it says is it does not contaminate the water.
Okay.
That's with anything.
Okay.
So now you get some people talking like, well, that's static water. It's a filtered system and all those good things. That's 100% true. But what we're saying is over the years, and this is a 10-year certification, over those 10 years, we will not contribute to the pollution of any of the water that will harm any of those animals. So if you catch a fish out of the SeaWorld tank, and I'm sure they wouldn't appreciate that, and you test it, you test the meat, and then you go test the meat which we catch out here at the reef. And it shows the plastics that are in our fish that we're bringing home and putting it on our grill. Wow. And then we're consuming it. So, the studies are there. There are obviously, I think, I don't know of anything else. I mean, we are putting plastic in the water. It's kind of funny when you think of it that way, but it does not come off our boat. And you talk about, and we may have mentioned this before, but our bond to the boat itself is on 800, a little over 800 psi.
Okay.
I don't want to put anything in the water that's going to hurt the water. I want to help save the bottom of the boat as much as anybody and keep it as clean as anybody. I just don't know. I know we have these certifications. I don't know if, there might be something out there that says we're not great, but right now we're the best out there.
Well, I'm just interested in people will say they have a certain certification. Honestly, it doesn't mean anything to me until I start asking questions like, what does that marine life certification mean? And why would you even have it? And then you have another one, which is a drinking water certification, you said.
Yeah, that's correct.
So why would your product or the pool product, why would you need to have?
So there's it's interesting. So the product is antimicrobial and antibacterial, and that makes a big difference. And it's kind of, you go backwards a little bit with that. We are food safe. So we go to like M&M Mars where they make candy and some of the big manufacturers, and we actually spray their floors with this product to keep microorganisms from growing on it, any bacteria from growing on it, which in turn, like the house we go to in Hopetown, where you have holding tanks where there's no fresh water there. And so you're keeping your fresh water in these holding tanks underneath your house and your cisterns in your house. So there's a big market for that, where we're actually spraying the inside of these fiberglass tanks. So you're not leaching into the drinking water that you're using. So there's a lot of people have to have water shipped in. Sure. So that's why that certification is existing.
Okay. So on something like that, like if you spray the inside of a tank that you're going to have your drinking water in, stuff doesn't grow there. It won't grow on this material. And if it's just bare concrete or bare metal or bare whatever, you're going to have algae and other things growing in there, even if it's chlorinated, I would imagine. I mean, I don't know. Chlorine would
nobody wants to drink chlorine water either. Right. So, you're kind of on that that dish that way. We just finished it. We just finished this 102-year-old pool up in Venetian, up in Coral Gables, called the Venetian Pool, and it's 102 years old. It's a national landmark. It's an old rock quarry, and when it was designed 102 years ago, it's the city aquifer that fills that the city aquifer, the drinking water that people at Coral Gables are drinking, actually fills that pool every day. Wow. And every day that pool is drained into the city aquifer. And so they have to keep the chlorine levels, a normal commercial pool is like 3 to 5 parts per million for chlorine for you to be legal. In that particular public pool, it has to be less than 1 part per million, because the water eventually, every day, because they can't keep the chlorine level high, they get algae growth, they get all the microorganisms growth. So every day they drain 960,000 gallons out of that pool into the city drinking system. Wow. So they brought us in because of our certification, because of our drinking water safe certification. They brought us in because they had the bright idea. They were trying to fight algae and they didn't want to drain it every day. So they bottom painted, which is what we keep talking about. They bottom painted that pool.
And so now they're going to be able to leave it full?
Well, no.
Longer?
What happened is they actually took a bottom paint from I'm not going to say the manufacturer, but they took bottom paint from a boat company or from a boat paint company, painted the bottom of the pool, and then every day they would drain the pool still, and they tried to move it to every 2 days, but then they got in a lot of trouble because every day they drained the pool, the paint chips would come out and go into the city drinking system. So you had all this nasty paint chips draining into the city drinking water system every day. So that's why we got called in on that job. We got called in because of our certification. We were the only company anywhere in the United States that I know of that was able to cover 26,000 square feet with drinking water safe. So now when people go to that pool in the city, the residents there, they're not drinking water that's full of paint chips.
Wow. Okay. So that explains the 2 certifications, the marine life and the drinking water safe.
Yeah.
And so what we're talking about, you're comparing yourself to traditional bottom paint that not only has no certifications, but it's toxic by nature, right? Like, that's how it prevents the stuff from growing on it. It leaches copper or something else that we don't necessarily want in the water. That's what's keeping the stuff from growing on it. That's correct.
They're microplastics, the silicone, a little bit of the silicone that they're using inside of it. I get excited about this product, and the more we dive into and I just learned this term not long ago, was the greenwashing term. I find it interesting. The deeper I get into this, I almost feel like an investigative reporter, that the products that we use here in our country are not allowed to be used anywhere else in the world because of the plastics, because of what it's doing to the environment. And again, I'll cut a tree down if I need to use it. I got no issue with that, but I do have an issue with deliberately poisoning ourselves. And you can almost see that when with our current health administrator, where we're talking about the dyes and the things that are used that are legal here, but you can't sell the same Fruit Loops in Canada as you do here. You can't sell I
don't understand that. I do not understand why we would allow worse things for our own population than we do just across the border. Like, it has to be healthier. So you're saying that some of these bottom paints that are allowed here are not allowed other places, but you did say earlier that you could go some places and get the old copper, the real copper paint, right? So
you can. I've learned that in the last several months that there are some countries that are not necessarily regulated. Sure. Some small island countries, and I'm not interested in throwing anybody under the bus, but that still happens, and people make their living that way over there. Then there's zero regulations going on. But in the countries that are progressive, and I think the word progressive now is not the correct word. It's countries that are willing to care, that are willing to fight some of these big, 50, 60-year-old mothership companies that have been bottom painting for years and poisoning our waters. Those other countries have been willing to fight it. And it just, and to your point, it's been an eye opener for me that we can use that here. Hey, send that to the Americans. They'll use it because they really don't care. And the regulations allow that to happen. So I find it troubling. It makes you wonder what other industries we're getting that's happening to us as well.
Well, one of the things that you just mentioned was greenwashing. I don't know what that term is either. What is it that you?
So greenwashing. I was doing an interview with Hempel Paints, and I kept looking at their. So 45 minutes. I talked to one of their head engineers that helps develop their paint, and I noticed on their packaging, it had remember the old Batman Kapow things, that they put on the box, and it's green, so everybody says, oh, it must be safe for the environment. It's green and it says no biocides, right? So you're immediately kind of drop without further question. You kind of drop your guard on them a little bit and think, oh, this must be good for the environment, and it's just absolutely not true. It is not good for the environment. It's horrible what it does with the microplastics. It's horrible that it has to be reapplied all the time. It's just astounding. You go back and look through history, and you find out later on that some of the things that we were allowed to have lead in our paint, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It took us years to figure that out. But now, as we sit here today, there's no excuse for it. There's no excuse.
But what is greenwashing, though? Is that pretending that it's good for the environment when it's
greenwashing? Yeah, greenwashing is just saying, yeah, this is environmentally, this is good. This isn't bad for the environment. But when you flip the can around and you read the details of it, and you actually read what's in it, and you read, they claim biocide free, but when you read about all the microplastics that are in there, the silicone that's in there, it doesn't stay on the boat as compared to ours. If that silicone stayed on the boat and you didn't have to reapply it every year, you know what? Not bad. Not a bad way to go about things, but it's just not possible. It doesn't stay on the boat, and they got to do it every year. But they do their studies. You read through their studies. I'm always one of those guys. The more words that are written, you're trying to hide something. What they say now by greenwashing is, hey, we're not as bad as we either used to be, or we're not as bad as the other guy. It reminds me of that joke when the guy said, he paid a preacher to say something nice about his jerk brother. And the preacher said, I'll do that for $100. And he said, yeah, he says, compared to his brother, he was a saint. So, their comparisons are kind of funny. So in my view.
So this is the world that you find yourself in. It seems like if you have this product that is truly doing what you say it's doing, it lasts longer, it's better for the environment. It seems like that wouldn't make some people very happy. Have you run into that at all?
I've already reached that stage. There's a couple different views of that. Some of the marinas that I've spoken to love the process. A lot of them are actually starting to move forward with us. But probably the hardest question for me that they come at me with is like, well, we're going to lose revenue because we pull these boats out every year and we sand them, and we get rack fees, we get pull out fees, we get put in fees, we get sanding fees, and then we get the paint. And some of that paint now, some of it's anywhere $500 to $2,500 a gallon for this stuff. So they're making their 15-20% along the way through this whole process. And here I come bebopping along going, hey, you don't have to do that anymore. You only have to pull the boat out once every 5 years, and you won't have that problem anymore. And they go, well, that's tied to our revenue. So to me, that's a great problem for me. And it's it's an adjustment for them. And I asked them, kind of my response to that is, I bet you the oar guys weren't happy with the Yamaha engines either when they came out. They're not making oars anymore.
Right.
So I said, kind of the difference to this is I think, it's not going to be for everybody. Not everybody cares as much as either environmentally or just the look of their boat or even the performance. Some people, that's not on their list of priorities. But what I have found is people are going to do it, and there's no hiding nowadays. I love this podcast because you can't really hide. If there's a better product out there, the people are going to demand it, and it's not going to matter if the holdup is the marinas losing some revenue. Well, the people are going to demand it, and if you produce a good enough product, it's not going to happen that way. So one of the latest marinas that I just actually talked to this morning, who's going forward, and they're a big marina. They said, well, we want in, we want to learn how to do it. We want to be a dealer. And now they're learning how to make the money off of it. But then their big question was, hey, for the marinas that don't do it, will you refer more customers to me? And I said, well, absolutely. We'll send them your way. So it's going to take some education to the public. It's going to take some demand from the public. And then it's going to take, you can't hide from it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So you'll have a little bit of pushback. We're having a little bit of pushback, but not much.
Well, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I was mostly interested in just like why you're putting it on with a blowtorch. I didn't know all this other stuff about these other benefits, but part of what I would assume is a benefit that as a boat owner that would be important to me is just less maintenance. Like if you have to pull your boat out every year, you have to sand the bottom, repaint the bottom. How much is it to put bottom paint? I mean, you said $2,500 a gallon for some of this bottom paint, but what is it like the kind of standard? So do they charge per foot, or what do they charge for bottom?
It's a charge per foot, but it's an interesting breakdown. And I kind of want to just revisit what I said just a minute ago. And you bring up that point. When you look at, you pull your boat out and you have it bottom painted, on average, 70% of that cost of your bottom paint is the sanding, is the prepping. 70%. The 30% is now the labor and the paint to go back onto the boat. So marinas aren't really making money off the paint. They're making money off pulling the boat out of the water every year and sanding it and subbing that out and making the 30%, and by the way, our carcinogen mess for those poor people that are sanding these boats all the time and sanding them every year and dropping all that stuff onto our ground, which is, probably real close to water, I would imagine, right? If we're at a marina sanding that all down. So you're losing a lot of that into the ground, into our soil, and we're repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. So, and they are now becoming under pressure, some of the marinas, about stripping boats off and reclaiming all that nastiness, all that bad product. So 70-30. And back to your question is, I've heard of prices all the way from $300 a foot. I'm sorry, from $150 to bottom paint. And it's hard to gauge this because some people just say put another coat on there. They don't care. They're not going to sand it down. They're going to add weight to their boat, and they're going to end up with 12 layers of paint on there, and they don't care. They're just going to keep painting the bottom of it and letting it go off. So it depends a little bit on how many layers that you have on. Again, if we think about 70% of it is stripping it down and getting it back to its original. So it can vary. I've seen pulled out fees like a rack fee, $350 a day for your boat, $250 a day for your boat to sit on a rack. So you pull your boat out, you pray that the guy shows up to sand it, and you're paying $250, $300 a day for it to sit there. Lord knows what you're paying him to do it. And you paid to have it pulled out, you have it paid to sit there, and you pay to put it back in, and you do that year in and year out. So I'm getting close to saying your 70% of your cost every year is going to go away. That 70% of the rack fees and along that nature. But it really does, Tom. It varies. You'd be surprised how it varies in between marinas and what their charges are. But we think, if you can take that down, and I don't think it's even an if, we've kicked around what we warranty it. I've had experience with this personally for 7 years. Some of my eco friends, the guys that use this product up north, do it on buoys, and they've been on buoys up there in the Northeast for 10, 12 years. We've had them on buoys up there. They simply drive up, spray it, pull it out of the water, set it on the deck of the boat, and spray it off with a hose and put it back in.
Wow.
Which normally would be pull it out, take it back to the shop, repaint it with the old stuff that they used to use, and put it back in the water.
Wow.
So there's a lot of different applications.
As far as the like, it seems like you're going to have something like for your product to really take off, which I hope that it does, because I feel like if people embrace this, it's only going to be better for the environment. And I would imagine that if the traditional bottom paint is as bad as you say it is, that it's only a matter of time before it gets outlawed or limited or restricted somewhere. Yeah. Right? Is that even happening yet?
Yeah. That's going on in California and Washington's got a couple other states.
That's where it always comes first.
Yeah, it's always starting there. I actually met with our local representative, and he was saying the same thing, that it's actually coming to Florida. He goes, it's going to take a while, yeah, but he was pretty positive about it, and matter of fact, he sent me a couple referrals about the product. So interested on how that might play out during his term and with our current administration. So we'll see. I mean, I think I don't want to beat the environment horse to death with this, but it means a lot. And now the look of it and the performance of it. So it's normally when you have to do something environmental, it's costing you money. It's going to cost you long-term money, and the restrictions are just creating not as good paint as you say, as performance wise. The more they take out of it, the more they protect the environment, the more ineffective the paint has become. And we're seeing that. But this is a rare, and I think why I'm so excited and spent a lot of money trying to develop this is I think the return of investment, everybody's going to win on this one. The boat owner's going to win a little bit, and the environment's going to win a little bit, and the applicators are going to win a little bit. So very rarely do you get to line all those three things up and make everybody happy.
Usually you don't. So if somebody looks at this product, they're like, I mean, like, is that a big company? Like, who does this with you?
So we are not a big company, and I'm kind of proud to say that we're a family-owned company.
Okay.
My wife, my sister-in-law are deeply involved in it, but our original company, EcoFinish, is the company that's how I got introduced to it, was for swimming pools. They're a large, again, family-owned company. They're probably revenue in the 60 to 80 million range, which for me is a large company. And they really stick to swimming pools and industrial use. I kind of went after them and asked if I could have the rights and everything to do it just on the bottoms of boats. And
have you ever done something like that before?
No, they've thought about it. They're kind of
Have you ever done something like that before? How did you even know to ask for the rights?
Oh, in 19, I'm their largest dealer on pools. How's that sound?
Okay.
So
yeah,
I quickly became their biggest installer on swimming pools. Of course, being in South Florida, I had a little bit of advantage because we have a lot of swimming pools here. So they're a Pennsylvania company. They're landlocked, and their ownership does not really even have a boat or own a boat. So it wasn't a priority for them. I went to them and said, hey, you have this interesting product that you're using in food places and things. And I said, I'm curious if I can take that and give it a shot. But before I invested the time and energy, I wanted to have the exclusive rights to it. So I was able to meet with the owner several times and get the rights to it. And now I'm I'm in the patent pending stage.
Okay.
For the product. So we got my name on that, and thirdly, the application device is the only thing that we have that's involved in this. It's made in Italy. It's not made in America. So I'm actually headed over there towards the end of the year to secure those rights and to secure some adjustments to it that we'd like to see. We have a new backpack version that we've been testing with, and just specifically for boat application. So, there's a lot of moving parts going on with it right now, but we've secured everything that's mattered. My background, I mean, I consider this very disruptive.
I would say so.
Industry. Yeah, I consider it disruptive. And in 1999, I started a company called JSEC, which is electronic prescriptions. I was the first guy you go to the doctor and your prescription shows up at Walgreens via the internet. By the time you leave the doctor's office, it's sitting there. I was the first guy that built that tunnel.
Really?
Built that tunnel. And yeah, we were the first people. We worked with Medicare. It was inside Medicare's database. Our databases and Medicare's were the same. And before I sold it, we had like 26,000 doctors using it and several million patients under our umbrella.
Wow.
So yeah, we did a lot of different things like that. So ended up in 2012, I sold that, and I was 44 at the time when I sold it, and thought I could play golf and and fish, and turns out my liver took a beating, and I needed something to do, and so I just haphazardly got into the pool business. I said, that'd be fun. I'll be outside and be in the Keys. And as soon as I did it, Irma hit, and so I was learning about pools through a fire hose. I'm an IT guy, healthcare IT guy. Next thing you know, I'm out there digging pools out, and so kind of interesting in between that, Tom. I had never worked for myself or anybody. And 2 weeks afterwards, you remember Craigslist? I used to, 2 weeks after I sold, I got on Craigslist. So someone find something to do. And there was a program to become a certified caddy. I said, well, I'm going to be a caddy. So I'm a 45-year-old man out in South Carolina. And I went to caddy school. Every morning I'd get up and go to caddy school, and me and the 18-year-olds and me were out there in caddy school. And it was funny. A lot of people felt sorry for me because they thought I was a middle-aged old man out there caddying for $20 a loop.
Yeah, little did they know you just sold your business for
exactly. One of my
You're like, I'm doing this because I want to, man.
Yeah. It was you've heard of Kiowa. It was Kiowa. Oh, yeah. I caddied there and actually had a house there as well. So when one of the mouthier guys would get out of control a little bit, I just point over there. I go, yeah, well, you just walk past my house. Just to give you an idea. I'm out here because I enjoy it. So
I want to be.
But yeah, so it was an interesting personal transition from working to retiring to thinking, man, I didn't really realize how antsy of a person I was because I've always worked my whole life. And you take that away from me, I turn into a kind of an idiot. I have to have something to do. So
I think that's everybody, man. Like you even see it with older people. Like I told you before we started that my dad's 87 years old and he still goes to work every day. In fact, as soon as we were going to finish here, I'm going to go meet him for lunch. And he's going to have his suit and tie on, and he's ready. I mean, he does it. He just goes to work every day. He doesn't have to go to work. He sold his business, but they apparently still let him come to work.
I'm sure.
And he actually does work. Like he works, but I watch what happens, and it keeps him sharp. He stays focused. He has something to do. And I've seen some of his contemporaries and his friends and some other of my friends' dads that retire from whatever profession, and they don't have anything to do, and they absolutely love it for about 2 months.
Yep.
And then their health starts to go downhill. Like in some way, either they start drinking too much or they don't have anything to do. They just lose their purpose. And and like the grandkids, it's like, oh great, I'll just hang out with the grandkids. Well, they go to school and they
Yep.
like they can't
Yeah.
just hang out with you all day. Plus they don't want to. Like
Yeah.
there's a time and a place for that. And it's not gonna, if you show up and you want to hang out with your grandkids 24/7, I hate to tell you, they're not gonna want to do it.
Yeah.
Even if on the best hunting lease or the best fishing boat or whatever, they're still not going to want to go.
Yeah.
So I think everyone has to have that. I think you have to do that. And in your case, you've done this with pools, and now you're branching off into this, which is super cool. And just recently, like the way I found you and your company and everything is this video that took off.
Right.
So this video takes off. And what does that do for your company?
So, things have changed. It's interesting because I was an IT guy, an IT founder, and I had a hard time logging into the podcast, how quickly things change. And now I don't know, a month ago, downloaded Instagram. I didn't know really, I'd never had a social media account. My wife was always on Facebook. I hadn't done any of that stuff before. I understood the power of it a little bit. I really didn't understand the power of it when that video went out, and I'm starting to see, hundreds of, over 100,000 people take a peek at it.
Yeah.
It's I think it's brilliant. I think, it helps a lot. There's obviously the downside of the internet and all the negative things of the internet, but man, if you can rabbit hole bottom paint and watch this video, and within 10 minutes you'll know who I am, where I live, and is it right? Is it real? Are my certifications real? I mean, there's no really hiding. And the same goes for the paint guys. There's no really hiding whatever product you're coming out with. It's nice. There's so much chance for education, to educate yourself before you buy that fishing rod, before you buy that boat. Is the new Yamaha 450 motor any good? You can really dig through a lot of things rather quickly on it. And the video's been, having you show some interest in it has just been, it's tremendous for us. It's a money saver at the end of the day. And hopefully, oddly, maybe this helps with the environment. Maybe this helps somebody. Maybe this helps us in the future. So
yeah,
I think
that's super cool. I see that there's more coming because, just the application is very eye catching. It's a unique way to do something.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that through all the fiberglass pools that you shot, you know that this is not harming the fiberglass, or like that's going to be the first question people have. It's like, what does that do to the boat?
So first of all, that's funny. I feel a little bit the comments, man. I can be I want it to be right. I want everything to be right. In some of the comments, maybe uneducated just a bit, or they're not sure what they're seeing, or they think it's something that they don't think it is, and there's a lot of interesting, and I want to respond to every one of them, and I think I could go nuts doing that. I kind of understand now when people have those comments come up. I'm like, and it's new to me. My wife's like, "Oh, baby, people do that all the time." I'm like, well, I don't like when they do it to me. It's not even fun to me. So I'm ready to fight. So the comments are great. The channels to get it out and all that is spectacular. I'm sorry I rambled off there and forgot your original question, but and it was an important one. What was that point?
Well, I may have forgotten too.
Yeah.
I think I've forgotten too, but at this point, you've gotten some momentum, and I kind of wonder where it takes you. When you see the future here, does it take you to doing a lot of smaller boats, or is there an application for this on cruise ships or some giant? I mean, those people have to paint the bottom too, right? Like, do you have a target of where you're trying to go? Are you appealing to a certain group that you think is going to be more receptive to this, or could it be anybody?
I think, the bigger the boat, the more problems, the more chemicals in the water, the more expensive it is to pull it in and out. I think the ROI changes drastically compared to the fisherman that comes down and spends the keys in the weekend, leaves his boat for 3 or 4 weeks in the water a year, versus the guy that's, as you pointed out earlier, where it's running 24/7 up and down, out in the water. So it's going to have a different value proposition, I think, for different size boats, obviously different applications. It brings to mind a story. I ran into the chief maritime inspector for Royal Caribbean. Um, I was shocked by this. And, you're never happy with a delayed plane flight unless one of the main guys you would like to talk to sitting beside you having a beer with is the maritime inspector for Royal Caribbean. But he was explaining to me that every ship, every port that they pull into besides the United States, test the water when they pull in and fine them for whatever is coming out of their boat.
Really?
So, and it's the chemicals off the paint. They get fined every time. So him and I are talking. He's in Rome. He's going to be in Rome when I'm over there in Bologna. We're going to have a meetup with him and his cronies and talk about a little further about this for the bottom of Royal Caribbean ship. So to your point, it's not going to probably be for every person out there, but it is definitely going to be, and whether you care about the environment or not, but if you care about money, we're going to save you a lot of money. And again, that varies on your use and how big your boat is. So I'm excited that it's that rare win-win-win. So
well, it's cool too because you're family owned, locally operated in the Keys company, which that's super awesome. I'm really happy that we were able to connect. I didn't know what to expect. I really didn't. I thought maybe this is just a hokey kind of thing, or I didn't know. But obviously, it's legit, and I think that's something that definitely a lot of people are going to be interested in for the durability, for the environmental aspects as well. And it's just way less maintenance. So good for you, man. Good for you.
Yeah, we'd rather be fishing than sanding,
Yeah. So we would all rather be fishing than sanding.
Man, I really appreciate you taking time for me, and I'd look forward to more conversations.
Well, that's cool. Well, maybe we'll put this on the bottom of one of our boats.
I would hope so.
Yeah. Well, we have one that we do keep in the water, so maybe we'll look into that and see what happens.
Let's be leaders, man.
All right. Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate it. And you're welcome. Just so everybody knows, where do they find your Instagram? Yep. I see that the Instagram is at Aquaphobix official. Yep. And what else do you have?
You got aquaphobix.com.
Okay.
And that's with an X. And I think Facebook's the same. I think if you search in Facebook under Aquaphobix, and you'll find us in there. So just make sure you put the X in, guys. And we will look forward to hearing from everybody and answering any questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, bud. Bye-bye. Okay.